I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's June 2nd, 2022, 6 p.m. It's actually 6:06, and I'm going to call our committee meeting of Executive Committee meeting to order. First thing on the agenda tonight is just a general category of policies and policy revisions. One of the things that I wanted to talk about with everyone, I feel bad that I'm like not looking at everyone. One of the things I wanted to talk about here was it seems like we need to do an overhaul on all of our policies. Yeah. Because they haven't been updated in a while. And so I just first of all wanted to know, are we in agreement, the three of us, that the policies need to be reviewed, all of them? Yes. Okay. So what I'm proposing is there are a lot that need to go to curriculum. And I'm afraid that if we keep putting them on curriculum with the huge decisions that we need to make with regard to just regular curriculum things, but also the discipline issue, that we're going to keep kicking this can down the road. So my thought is, what do you guys think about proposing to the board that the executive committee meet and start going through the policies, connecting with whoever and offering some changes, or if not, like we'd say we reviewed these three or whatever and we don't see any changes here, that kind of stuff. I mean, how do the three of you feel about us executive committee doing that rather than it going? Now, I don't want to say all of them, right? Because I think buildings and grounds, personnel, the ones that should go where they go, but the ones that we keep kicking to curriculum, I don't know that we're going to have a chance to do that. So What do you guys think?
All right. First of all, I'm taking some of the bull by the horns. And so I actually, in my meeting today for the ad hoc committee, I kind of jumped the gun a bit and I said, we need to deal with policy 5500 is one of them. And policy 50, I'm probably wrong in the numbers. I could look it up quick. But we have a couple of policies that will directly relate to the behavior.
Okay.
And the discipline.
Is it 5540?
Yeah, I think it's 5540. Did you just look it up?
No, I just.
Oh.
That's all. I'm just reiterating what you said.
I think
Tony, are you looking it up?
I could be wrong on that, but
Tony's going to look it up.
Okay, thanks, Tony. And I have it on.
Investigations involving suspicious activity, children abuse, 5540.01.
No, I don't think that's it. Okay. But anyway, I can figure it out in a minute.
Okay.
But and our code of conduct. So we're missing that. We're missing a real code of conduct. We haven't had one for a long time. It's very vague and it's awful. So.
And that's in one of these policies, the code of conduct?
No, code of conduct is separate.
It's a titleation, not a policy number.
Right.
Okay.
So, but it's separate, but we have some policies and we have code of conduct. Okay. But the reason I'm lumping that together is today I kind of gave the assignment to the ad hoc committee to start looking at those policies. I said I would try to get them from Joyce to give me the current Neola version, and they'll start looking at them first and going through them and making sure that they align with what we're thinking for the behavior plan, especially with the code of conduct, because that's not even a policy, but they'll start looking at them from other places, good examples, and putting it together. And because what's easier is because I'm curriculum chair, then I can bring those first to our curriculum committee to go over again, and then we can pass it on and get that ball rolling instead of waiting.
Perfect.
So that's what I was looking at for those few. There are, I think, 4 of them.
5518 is cell phone, is that one?
That is one of them. 5518, 5500. We definitely, I actually had a teacher asking me last night, please address the cell phone policy. So 5518, 5500, and I think there's 2 or 3 more that we talked about, but those would be the big ones.
Okay. And one of the things I would suggest then just be, and I'm sure you will, but in the agenda, be very specific of what policies you're gonna cover in curriculum, so that any of the board members that want to be present can be there for
Sure.
that.
That makes sense. Now, I know we have another one, and Tony's brought it up too, well, kind of everybody has,
2240.
2240. I'm so afraid I'm repeating numbers. So that'll have to be addressed too, but I don't know who and, I don't think that's a behavior committee,
That's what should bring to exec.
policy. What's that?
I think that should be brought to exec.
Well,
that-
we talked
Or-
about, I think Tony
Or correct, you know.
Yeah, but I
curriculum.
mean, it shouldn't be at behavior.
Yeah.
Tony talked about maybe, I think we talked about that one being personnel, only because it has to do with what the expectations are of handling controversial issues within our district. So yes, it falls under curriculum in a way,
Yeah.
but how do you guys feel about that one coming to personnel?
That's fine.
We'll go through it and go from there. Yep.
So I have no qualm or issue with, I mean, I know it's a stay in the lane focus, but if, I mean, here we have, if a committee brings up a policy to work through and digest, cool. That's what we should do. Because ultimately, whatever the committee works through and digests has to come to this body, the full body anyways. So as long as people are just putting in the footwork, whatever committee that it goes to, I don't have a concern with whatever. It can probably just be assigned, and I'm okay with it. Now, granted, I guess you want to have the scope of work.
Well, that's
And the mindset.
fine. I mean, if we're okay assigning them to committees, I'm okay doing that too.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it gets done.
I do think, though, that there's some value in having people who are passionate about a certain one work on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if there's something that someone wants to be involved with, so like Tony, I know you brought it up. I'm not throwing you under the bus, but like if you wanted to, so it goes to personnel, which you're not on personnel, right?
I'm not, no, but I could
But you
always.
can be involved with it
Right.
because you know where it was.
Right.
So, you know,
Right.
I could see.
And that's why I think, as far as transparency goes, is that when those committee, when we set up a meeting, it goes out to everybody so that everybody knows when the meeting is and the agenda, so that, again, if you see that on there and you want to participate. Because remember, you'll still get to participate because we have to read through it twice, the new
Yeah,
one anyway,
absolutely.
right? And so that's going to have some deliberation too. It's just a matter of let's get the busy work of it done, hopefully at a committee.
Or even do what like Spalding did with that policy. He took that policy, looked at it, said, hey, I want to put these changes in there, sent it to you. You can distribute from there. And that way then, it's get as much work done as you possibly can, and we'll work through it. I mean, because there are quite a few policies, and if we're just going to...
Yeah.
Put out fires.
it might get a little, this is a little bit more focused where, hey, I've seen this policy, I want this policy fixed, I want this updated, then we tackle it. Even just, I understand what you're saying, have the committees take up, I can take, in finance committee, we can take up any of them.
No, I mean, I'd rather it be in your lane.
Right.
I'd rather it be in your lane. The ones that aren't in the lane that we can't figure out, do we think, we don't have a governance committee. The closest thing would be exec.
Yeah.
So do you mind if those things come to the executive committee when they don't really fall into a clear lane?
Yeah,
No, that's
totally fine.
Okay. And then the second thing about policies and policy revisions that I was thinking about is it would be nice, kind of what Tony said earlier about how we need to have we're not always going to be here, right? So we want to create a better structure for the next board and the next board. And so creating a calendar to review policies, right? So that we divvy up, this committee is responsible for these policies, and they're going to do the odd number ones in the odd years, and so that it's always being done rather than it just kind of sitting on a shelf.
And waiting for someone to recognize it needs to be done. Yeah, that's a great idea. And so with that, we need to have some space, perhaps in Lori's office, because she's our secretary, and that's where things are kept, where like binders are kept for future board members and executives.
Well, and
so that
I-
they can
That's the
rely
shared
on
drive,
that.
right?
What's that?
That's
That-
the shared drive.
Right. What I would propose is that we do an electronic shared drive that only the board members can get into, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
all in there.
Oh, gotcha.
So every
Okay.
single year, so
That's
when,
great.
for instance, when the superintendent evaluation, right?
Perfect
That
example.
fell by the wayside when the new came aboard, and the minute that person gets the chairmanship, they go right to that folder, they have the calendar, they know everything, and it's all laid out
I think
for
that's
them.
great.
So what I think we should do is then, I think instead of us, because this is the second meeting we've had the discussion about the shared drive, I think we need to task IT with creating that shared drive then.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, I'll request it, but I mean, I think, do we need to have a formal motion or formal action that we as a body have
I
a
think
shared
we
drive?
probably should, because you know how they,
I understand, yeah, so.
It goes by the wayside then.
Yeah,
Right.
so if we have a formal motion, so I'll make a motion that we enact so I gotta, Colin made a motion.
Correct the minutes.
Well, yeah, I know, I'm making the minutes and I'm making the motion.
do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, is there any further discussion about that? And I'll go ahead and, we'll bring it to the full board then at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
I
To
think
create,
too, when we
shared.
do that though, sounds so funny.
That's okay.
When you make that motion, Colin, like it should include like a timeline, like we'd like it to be completed by, and it needs to be reasonable, but to put like an ending date on it. Because if we just say we want it done, that doesn't mean it's gonna be done
So
like, as
we,
soon as we'd like it to be.
That's fair.
all I did is say I was gonna make a motion, though,
Do you want to make a
Can I make a-
friendly
yeah, I'd like
amendment
to
to
make-
that?
well, I didn't even finish the motion,
Oh,
so. Thanks, buddy.
land the plane.
Yeah, I know. All right, so I'd like to make a motion that we have the shared drive and the calendar, the policy calendar, implemented by the board. So not just the shared drive, the calendar as well, and then it moves electronically forward.
By,
We'll say by the end of the month,
by August 1st
August 1st. Sure, by August 1st.
Or before.
or before.
To create a shared drive and calendar of policy review to be completed August 1st.
Keep raising your hand.
Yeah, I'm trying to be.
Yeah, sorry.
Can we, like, task the vice president to, like, to go through the policy and then see, okay, which committee it needs to go with? Because we need to have a person to help
Facilitator?
facilitate the process of revision to the committee level, so that those policies continue, so it's on the agenda every single week or every single month so we need to have a person, a figurehead, that is going to present the policies to the committee level. So it can be anybody, it's just somebody has to be tasked with, oh, you have this policy this week or this month, and that keeps.
I'm
the ball rolling.
happy to do it. I
Are you
like,
sure that that's not
You
too
wanna
much?
do it?
Like-
I kind of like that stuff.
Okay, if you like.
You're
Yeah,
done. All right, so
I know it's
we're
kinda dumb,
changing it
but-
to, yep.
Yeah,
Thank you, thank
Yeah,
you, that
you
means a
bet.
lot.
And I will,
'Cause I need that, so,
yeah, no, I like that. It's orderly. I like order.
good.
So Matt requested that Stacy be tasked to facilitate policy designations.
Designation to committee, that's kind of what you guys want, right? We want to bring
Yep.
the
Or-
committee consistently with the calendar.
Correct.
And I'll start just looking at the 5500s in general too, because I think that's the more behavior type stuff, or
Oh.
like the curriculum section.
Students, so it
Students,
breaks it
yeah.
down by thousands, so,
Mhm.
Yeah,
that's why, like, we should just really go through, but we need to be doing them simultaneously in committees, because we need to get more done than just one committee doing one policy.
oh,
Yeah.
We need to have three committees
absolutely.
doing three different policies at the same time.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, how else are we gonna bring it all up?
How are we ever gonna get it done?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, how many policies do we have? I mean,
quite a few.
I could spend like
Hundreds.
a full day or two, just.
Well, and that's where,
Probably 1,000, because we have 1 through 9, and then there's maybe not 100 in each one, but I mean,
no, I don't think it's
Do we need all
1,000,
of
but
them? I mean,
So-
is that a fair question?
It's
That brings,
It is
that
a-
brings something up. How,
that's a fair
what about
question.
requesting, can we request them all from Neola right away so we can tackle
wanna
what
touch
we
on
want?
that.
Well,
to
so
do?
that's
Or how does it work?
that's another,
That's
that's
part of the policy
another,
revision.
that's under this category. So
Okay.
if we're done talking about this, we feel like we have a plan moving forward.
yes.
But yeah, Tony, I think you're right. You know, I mean, I think there's a question, are there some policies that we don't need and some policies we need? I mean, I think we need to consider that as well.
Yeah, so maybe in our discussions, we should ask the questions when we review this policy, like, do we need this policy?
Right,
And if not, then let's just eliminate it.
right.
and if the policy's actually being followed, because that's where the big problem, we have good policies, this district has done its due diligence over the years,
Right.
they are not being followed at times. That's where the oversight of the board needs to kick in with the superintendent, with our principals, to make sure it's being followed.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, there's no purpose in even us reviewing the policies if they're not gonna get corrected.
That's
Absolutely.
our point.
Yeah,
So-
I would agree with that totally, and that's, I can talk about that policy thing I emailed you about, right, from that parent, since it's policy related.
Yes,
So they were asking, well, hey, like what happens, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, I think something should happen if policies are violated. You know, I'm not saying heads need to roll, but I think, you know, at a minimum, we should address it and just make sure, you know, there's some training or some sort of, you know, conversation with their,
well, what we need to find out is what is the procedure if a policy is broken, right? We don't know, and I would venture to say that we're gonna be told that's out of our lane, right? So, but maybe, right? Because if we don't have a procedure in place, then obviously we need to ask that one is created.
Right.
But I think the first thing is we have to figure out what do we do in the event that a policy is broken. And how do we go about doing that? And let's look at what is the procedure.
So I guess, well, I'm curious though, how are you, you're saying, who are we tasking with this to find this out?
I will,
Okay, so, no, I meant like, you're gonna find out what we do?
yes,
The procedure
What
when
do we-
policy is not
Okay.
followed,
correct.
Stacy will,
the appropriate procedure.
the ramifications for,
Because I think that's where we need to,
Policy.
right, I think that's where we need to start, right? Like, what do we do now? And how is it monitored?
and how is it monitored?
And do we want to make any changes to it? Are there any board suggestions or?
That's how we would fix it, because it's probably, I haven't read through all the policies, but it's probably, we give the power to the superintendent, so it's probably his discretion or her discretion to
Right.
determine if it was truly not.
Right,
Well,
don't-
and you do wanna give them some flexibility, because quite honestly, like, I mean,
It depends on the policy.
well, right, but I mean, at the same time, we, what is it? Sorry, I gotta correct that. We wanna, the term, operate within fences or whatever what that was, huh? No, Tony, do you remember that terminology? Fences,
I remember silos, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Fences and
yeah, with, it's basically.
barriers.
Yeah, you basically operate, you have the ability to operate within, you're setting up your parameters, and you have full autonomy, but you have your barriers, you don't be,
Scope of,
yeah.
of work, I mean, that's really what you're,
Right.
just like a job description.
Let's not forget though too, and then I want to move on, but let's not forget too that, you know, there is an employee handbook, right? So that's another thing. And we do have student handbooks too. But again, we need to make sure
These are
it
being
might be in there. Oh, it's on our main, it's under the policies. You can look at it. So I just think that, again, we need to look at what we're doing now and then go from there.
Before we jump off a policy,
We're not. We're going to talk about the
thank you,
Neola
that's
thing.
what I wanna jump to, so.
Okay. The other thing,
I found it too. Policy 4139, staff may be disciplined for violation of board policy or for other failures to meet expectations or obligations of their positions. You know, so in our policy, it's just, we have to,
It seems very fluid.
yeah.
Well, we just, yeah, but
It
yet,
has to be upheld.
right.
Yeah.
What is the number of that? Because I think that
This
the,
is staff discipline.
yeah,
PO 4139.
4139.
I put it in the minutes, Stacy.
Okay,
It just
thank
says
you.
investigation of possible criminal activity, and there's oral reprimanded, and then written warning, and then a suspension, and then termination.
Yeah, you know, it gets tricky when you talk about like new hires, right? Like, you can't expect them to know all the policies right off the bat, so it's good that they have some of that latitude to deal with things. But, you know, maybe too, it's our obligation to, when we revise something, or even just like renew a policy, even if it's verbatim, to just like have it pushed out there so people, like all of our staff knows, you know what I mean? So if we're dealing with, say, 3 a month, those 3 after our meetings, like go out to all staff as a reminder that these are our policies and we're updating them, they know. Because you can't expect all of our staff, you know, because it's all staff, it could be
Yeah.
their maintenance, like that they have to know which policies we're dealing with
Oh,
and
so
what it
yeah,
says.
yeah, when there's a new revision,
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, put it out there for everyone to know, like, as a
It's like a
reminder.
dashboard.
So like, for example, when we're
Transparency.
doing, yeah, like when we're doing 2240, right? Like, they should know what that is, or if we're doing something with
And maybe,
behavior.
and maybe part of professional development is that, you know, once a year or whatever, we review X and you sign that you understand that these are
Yeah.
the policies.
prints on
right?
date, yep, that's what we used to do. And we had hundreds that we had to memorize, no, maybe even thousands policies we had to memorize. And it was, every single time a new one rolled out, print sign date that you read it, understood, move on. And there's like probably about 7, 8 at a time that we were cranking out. Yeah,
But the reality is, how many of us right now know all these policies?
No,
No.
right.
well, that's how
So
you
we
get it.
can't expect our staff to know them either.
Absolutely.
No, which
This
is
like
why,
what we're
yeah.
tasked with, so-
Exactly, which is why I think if we had it as part of professional development, or even your daily policy, you know what I mean, something
Right,
that it's
yeah,
in the
some kind of
forefront.
communication.
Manageable
Yeah,
expectations, yep.
Okay, so the other policy issue is that, I know that, you know, Colin, you can probably speak more to this, but, I don't know that Neola is the best fit for us.
Right.
And so, you know, Colin's asked several times, are there other firms that can do the same thing that Neola does, and maybe we would like them better?
Yeah.
Also, you know, we need to remember that another option is that I think it's a little more difficult, but you can always create your own policy and have our attorney look at them, right? That's an option as well. But I think that my recommendation would be is, can we make a recommendation to the board to, and maybe we don't even need, I think we need the permission of the board. I mean, to look at, get some quotes, some from other policy-making organizations out there, what they have to offer, and see if we want to jump ship,
Okay.
do something different.
Well, I don't have a problem with Neola, but you know, they haven't really done anything with us for a couple of years, really. I mean, it's like worth checking into. And I'm not opposed to that at all, like seeing what else is out there.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want to start our own writing, though. That could get very, very costly with having to go to a lawyer each time.
Right, agreed.
But we could have, like, I just keep using Neola because it's the only one I know of. Like, get theirs, and then maybe there's some things that could be modified and have it rechecked with Neola. I don't, you know, we haven't done this since I've been a board member. We
Right.
haven't really done, I think we've changed 1 or 2 policies in the last 2 years. So having that, looking into it and seeing what we can and can't do with things
Okay,
is a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we should check into
Totally.
what our contract is too, up with Neola.
oh, sure, yep.
I would be open to looking at what other options are out there, and I will also add that less is more. You know, just looking at all the and maybe we need all these, I don't know, but like it's just a lot to swallow. And to your point, I think Kathy said, you know, probably people that have been here a long time don't know all of our policies, either that or they're intentionally violating some of them. So I think we just gotta, if we can, you know, simplify things and not make it so cumbersome that you need an army of lawyers to figure it out.
Right. And again, I think that when we were, this is going to segue right into our strategic plan, but again, I think that that's going to be something that, but Colin?
So there's an organization that I'm aware of, and maybe other people are aware of too, but it's called ALEC. That
Yeah, so I'm trying to reach out to see if there's different, obviously organizations that write policy beside, or not write, somebody that we can use as a reference to revise, or, something at a better cost than a law firm to revise policy. So, I'm looking into, it's called ALEC. I'm looking into seeing if they would be open to working with us to revise policy. Just pretty much giving us a different perspective, to make sure that we are being helped by not putting restraints on how we are trying to reform our policy, and having the utmost ability to be free to make our own decisions for our district, and not being controlled by fear of reprimandation, being reprimanded for trying to do something that we feel is what our constituents want us to do. So.
Okay, so moving forward on that, Matt, would you be willing to look into some other ALEC, and then maybe one or two other ones, and just seeing what is out there, maybe some benchmarking with some other, or we can also task Joyce. We can ask Joyce to look into these things, or
Definitely.
or a staff
obviously,
person.
I can collect information, and then I would report to the executive board or the board at whole. But I'm kind of want to reach out to WASB, because I know they do policy as well,
Mm-hmm.
and then ALEC, and then what I'm concerned about is our children, because I don't think that it's happening fast enough. So, for example, the curriculum committee was asked to look at a policy, and our director said that they were going to look at the policy, and I have gotten no information, which maybe I'm not the right person to ask, but I want to make sure that we are moving forward and not just pushing the can down the hill or up the hill or in the closet or in the alleyway, because I want to make changes while we're here.
Right.
So I was at a meeting, and do you know of anything about the Neola? We reached out to Neola, or Jason reached out to Neola about 2240. Has anything happened? See, so that's what I don't want to happen.
Now,
And I
wait,
understand-
whoa. I thought I got the stuff from Joyce and forwarded it to Kathy. Did that not ever happen? We did contact Neola. Joyce contacted Neola, I believe, about 2240, and I thought I forwarded it to Kathy. But if I didn't, then that might
So
be
that-
on me.
Yeah, so the email, emails are great, but we need to somehow hold
Right.
everything
well,
together.
sometimes the balls do get dropped. So if that's the case, if it's already been taken, but yeah,
Just I guess, I think what would be helpful, not to be annoying, but to follow up. It's very difficult. I mean,
I know.
I'm noticing I've been starring emails, right? Because I know that they need follow-up, but I still am dropping the ball because there are so many. So if you have to wait more than 48 hours and it's not like someone's on vacation or it's a holiday or whatever, reach out again and ask, because, I think it's happening, and, I don't want us to be upset with a staff person when it did get to our plate and we didn't do something.
But I will reach out, so sorry to interrupt about it, but I will reach out to, WASB and then ALEC as well, and if there's any other suggestions, maybe we can have the secretary reach out as well. Maybe we just need to reconnect with Neola, because we haven't talked to him in a while. And then we need to see when the contract is up with Neola as well.
It's sitting here. But we didn't really sit and talk about it either at curriculum committee, did we?
Only a little bit.
Yeah.
Right,
There's
I mean-
a lot to do. So
right.
That's why I don't want to keep pushing stuff.
Which
Well,
is
that's fine.
which
If
is
you
why
do it, let's just do it, right?
I mean, which is why, again, that's why, can curriculum do it, Kathy? I mean, I'm not blaming you at all. It's just, I think there are so many things I feel like we're bumping to curriculum, and I know that this whole discipline thing and just kind of the other things that are maybe curriculum based, do we have time, or do we need to have governance take that on? I don't know.
I don't know, I know that, I guess if any, and we talked about blame yesterday in our curriculum stuff, or not curriculum, meeting with Pam and Jason. it's not really about blame, just some things just, you have to be accountable, and I didn't get to this, so, sorry, May 24th I got it. So last week, Tuesday, you sent it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
But, you know, and my focus really has been on the whole behavior thing, but that's not to say that we can't, as curriculum, handle this stuff
Okay.
either. So, because sometimes I'm gonna have to just get my head out of the behavior stuff and deal with some of these other things.
Okay,
So-
and all I ask
and
is if-
remind me, I mean, if we haven't
Yeah.
dealt with something.
Yeah.
And if you ever feel like that there's
Too
something
much.
you can't do,
Yeah.
bump it back to me and we'll figure out how to do it.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
so if I let you down, guys, I apologize for that.
And we're all,
But I think, like I said, this was last Tuesday. When did we meet for our committee?
we only met once and it was,
Was that last week?
yeah, it was May 21st or was it?
Yeah, so that would have been before this
Yeah.
got to me, but it doesn't really matter, I guess. I know we either need to address it or give it to somebody who,
That's why I was
Wants to
trying to
address
kind
it.
of think of a person or a position that could manage.
Oversee it, yeah.
Essentially we need a facilitator that's gonna
Mhm.
manage the process of policy revision, because Stacy, you're very, very busy and you're
it's a
very,
big
very good,
job.
but we need somebody to follow through and say, when I ask somebody to do something and then they don't do it, you know, it's like, I can't keep on pushing them to ask. It's like I have to move on because we're moving, because we're tasked to do many different
Well,
things.
so I mean, again, we can look at, is Lori, she's our secretary, would that be something that we can't delegate her to come up, we can't delegate a staff person to do policy.
No.
I think for follow-up though, if that might work, just a reminder, because Matt's right. I mean, honestly, like, you know, I have a ton of that in my own business I gotta deal with, and then it's just like, if I'm following up with people on stuff that I sent them or asked them to do, it just creates additional work that frankly, I shouldn't have to deal with.
Well,
But I
so,
think it should be one of us. I don't think it should be, like, we certainly can't task it with Lori. Lori is swamped. She's always busy.
well, what if it's Lori keeping tabs on what we said we were going to do in our meeting, right? I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe if she says, oh, by the way, Stacy, you know, in the meeting, you blah, 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 and have you done that? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're
I think we
thinking.
need to hold each other accountable.
I think
That's
we should-
exactly what I'm about to say.
I think,
Sorry, I should have.
No, that's okay. So like, we do hold it, we should be just holding each other accountable. We are a full body. We put that stuff in the minutes, you know, we put what each person is tasked with in the minutes as a body. When it goes to general and we read those minutes, we should be following up with those questions. Hey, where are we at with that? Where is this going along? And then, we can then also create an action item within that to have that completed, or set a deadline at that point for its completion, and then just keep holding each other accountable
Yeah.
via what our minutes are reflecting, via what our committees are stating, and then just continue on that process from there.
Well, and people from within our own committees will, because I have.
so
mine
that, I mean, that's what we
here.
just did, so that's what I asked about
Yeah.
it, which we haven't received.
Yeah,
There we go.
Hold us
So-
accountable. We're
which
all
is great.
accountable to each other.
I just, you know.
But
I think we should have,
it's too slow for you.
yeah, the vice president, I think, should be, if they have, or, whoever can somehow just keep the train moving in the
Sure.
right, or keep the boat going off the rocks. So it's just, we need to continue to have
Yeah.
oversight that just keeps on making sure that it's being reviewed. and
Would you
it's-
like to be that person?
No, I don't. So-
No,
If you
come
ask-
on!
If you ask me to do it, I will. So so like, that's what happens with government, when people speak up, then they get put to work.
Matthew Phipps, you are going to be the policy czar in the
I am
sense,
not a policy guy. but-
no, in the sense
can.
that if we say
Okay.
that we're going to
Review,
review a policy, that you will hold us accountable to follow up.
I will do that.
Would that help with when we get that,
I'll help you.
that board thing up?
Absolutely will,
Then-
because,
then we can
right,
rely
because
on-
instead of me having to send out an email to each one of you over everything, you guys can go into that shared drive
Yeah.
and click on
Is it completed?
what are the follow,
Yeah.
absolutely, it would,
Yeah.
it's just, it would save
So
so
maybe we
much
should bump up
time.
that timeline to be completed sooner then.
No later than.
A shared
Ju-
drive,
or
all it is-
July 15th.
All a shared drive is just a folder that everybody gets access to. I mean,
It's super easy to do it.
But
You're
we
right.
So-
don't know what they're tasked with besides this, like, we don't know if they have downtime for IT this summer or what, so I think having some latitude with the
Well,
time is good.
well,
But
sure,
what if
and the
it's
only
July
other-
15th?
2 months.
We,
I was thinking July 15th.
I'm better
month
with
and a
that,
half.
yeah.
July 15th is good. The other thing though, too, don't forget, not everyone is techie on our board. And,
Try.
you know, and we have to be respectful of that and give them some time to train to do that. That's all
Yeah.
you know, that's
Okay,
the
so
other
what are we-
thing.
What are we thinking?
July 15th.
July 15th? All
I'm getting
right.
better.
So, going back to your motion that was made, I'm friendly to that motion, being July 15th. And Kathy, are you as well?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. All in favor, aye? Or, sorry,
Wait, we
That's
don't
your
have to
job.
vote on it till the main meeting,
We have to wait till Tuesday.
right?
yeah, but
Well,
don't.
is this
'cause
actually a vote, or is this like?
There was a
something we
motion
could
and a
just task
second
them?
to it, so, yeah.
Well, yeah, because we decided we want the board to put their blessing on that we're gonna do this.
Okay, so Tuesday we'll deal with it.
Okay.
Well, not Tuesday, because Tuesday is only closed session. But with the
because
next
we're-
one, we will.
Yeah. All right.
That's good.
If I
Okay.
can make one quick suggestion too, and I'm just throwing this out there since we're talking about it. But I think what might be helpful, would be, you know, I know we do the minutes and everything. I guess I just gotta get versed on where to access those, but if there's actionable items, that we come away with at the end of the meeting, you know, maybe the board secretary can just send a quick summary email saying, here's what we agreed to and here's the timelines to get it done.
I like that.
I'm just saying from a measure of accountability, and I can give you an example, I work with a business coach and we have a phone call a couple times a month. And after every call, he sends me a list of stuff we talked about. And I know that if I don't have that together by the next meeting, then it's gonna be an awkward conversation, right? So,
Okay, so this would be, because it's not gonna happen with our secretary, it's gonna happen at our committee meetings, mostly,
yeah,
right? That's where the work's gonna be done, so it's our directors and Colin at executive committee putting a list of actionable items
Actionable
at the
items.
end of the board minutes.
Okay.
Or doing something to highlight what those are so that it's very clear.
you know,
I can do that. I'll start the trend right now.
Perfect.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Give it a whirl.
and then you could just print it out and then you know, like, all right, before the next meeting, you just, you know, I have it up on my wall and you're just kind of reminded constantly of, here are the things I need to be working on, then you spend calendar time.
That would be really helpful though, like, 'cause, like I get focused on one thing and then sometimes I'll forget other things and.
Well, and I think the other thing
That's a
too
good
is
reminder.
that we often, I don't know about you guys, but Lori will say the minutes are now on there, or we don't see them till the day of the meeting.
Or a couple of days before. but
Right,
yeah.
the committee reports,
Yeah, like
right?
it should be soon afterwards so we can look at
Even
it.
if
That
it's,
was,
even if it's a rough draft, it at least
Yeah.
shows us what our agenda items were.
right, I was
That's
thinking
what
the same thing when
happens.
Tony was suggesting this, I thought, well, really, we could just be sent the notes like within, you know, say within X days.
Exactly.
So that we have them to read through and remind ourselves, but
We're getting off topic too.
So I'm gonna put, or Colin, put down.
Sorry, I mean,
No, it's
yeah,
Colin,
bring it back in.
put down in, put down that, one of the things for, actually, maybe put this under committee updates, which is a couple down on our list here.
Yeah.
Okay, put under there that, I'm going to make an announcement at our next board meeting, just for directors to get just a rough draft of the meeting minutes out within, what, 48 hours? Does that seem reasonable? So that we can see the action items,
How about 2 business days?
2 business days.
Because
Okay.
then it's the weekend. It allows people to have a weekend or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
You guys good? You cool with that one?
sorry, I was doing
2 business days versus just a couple hours?
It should be more than a couple of hours.
It would be that we would have anyone that's taking minutes, not any, just out of the committees that we would get a rough draft of, because I know some people hand do them. So a rough draft of the minutes so we can see the action items and get going on them within 2 business
I
days.
don't know if we can do that because those do become, like, minutes and stuff like that do become part of I mean, rough draft is, I'm fine with rough draft because I usually just,
Right, that's what I'm saying, is that it's a rough draft, because those have to be accepted then, right? By
they do, everything
by
has
the
to be accepted.
by the board.
So like
Yeah, but so,
rough
like-
draft,
But just the minutes do, not the action items don't have to be.
okay.
So,
Yeah, so so for example, we'll be sent, like Angela's great at sending out the minutes and saying, is this okay?
right,
And so like Colin can verify them before it goes onto the site and stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
okay. All right, next thing is the strategic plan. I really want to get going on this. We only have the 2. I reached out again to School Exec Connect, and the guy, I sent you guys all a message. He said he'll have it by tomorrow. So we're going to have those 3 to look through, and I guess I'm looking for suggestions on how we want to decide. Is that something you just want me to bring up at the general? These are the 3. Who do we want to go with? Do we want more information? I feel like people need a little bit more time to digest it prior to just bringing it up at the general board meeting.
Should you just forward them to everybody?
Yeah, you guys have 2 of them. I've given you 2, and there's only 1 more coming.
I think the thing is, like, while we're trying to, like, streamline our meetings on Tuesdays,
Yes.
right? Like, we don't want to have that, like, it's okay for discussion, we have to open things up, but if we've done our homework ahead
Correct.
of time, so that we,
Right.
and even asking questions ahead of time, like, if I
Well,
wanna
and
ask
I'm
you
wondering,
something.
now that you say this, I'm wondering, does that need to be a closed session item? Because we're talking about 3 people? I mean, 3 different organizations that are, well, they're associated with a person.
It probably should be.
Okay, so then we need to have a closed session item to talk about strategic plan and who we're gonna go with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you think we should? I mean, I'm thinking like, okay, so we're talking about
Yep,
who we go with and why.
yep.
So what's
What do you
the,
think?
what is
Maybe?
the
I don't know,
discussion
That's for
to,
a lawyer would be nice.
I think that's
Yeah, but I don't
what
know
they've
if
said
they
before, if there's like quotes and competitive
Right, because,
quotes
right,
and
we
stuff.
have 3 quotes, right? We have
Yeah.
3 quotes and 3 people to do a strategic plan for us. We need a closed session to discuss which one we're gonna go with.
Yeah,
And
I
we
think
need
so.
to be able to say these people's names, say how much it's gonna be. Now, we're gonna come out of there and make a vote.
Yeah.
Right? We're gonna come out of there and make a vote and how much it is, so the public is going to see who we've chosen and the details of that. But I think the discussion needs to be a closed session.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
so strategic plan, we're, so we will be discussing,
I'm gonna send out the 3rd strategic plan proposal. And then at the general meeting, we're gonna go into closed session. We're going to discuss the 3 and choose one.
we were discussing 3 plans on which meeting?
General meeting, which is our first meeting of the month.
So what is that, 7,
Anyone have a calendar?
pulling it up now.
Lisa's got a calendar.
Tuesday, first Tuesday or second Tuesday?
Second Tuesday of the month, the 12th,
July 12th you're talking about, right?
On the 14th of June.
Yeah.
14th of June,
So we'll
second,
probably- yeah.
second Tuesday.
So on
14.
6/14, we will excuse me, 3 plans at 6:14 in closed session.
I wouldn't even say we're gonna select one. I think we need to say something like we're going to review them, because we,
And
Item-
for possible
Possible
action.
Well, item
and
will be
possible
action.
possible action.
Yep.
Yep,
With possible action.
perfect.
So how much time do they, I gotta look through those again, but that'll give us enough time to get those done, right? I mean, it's not like,
To start a strategic
yeah, cause
planning?
both those proposals were saying at least 3 months, right, to get that put together.
Well, you know, we've existed without a strategic plan for many years, so I think
know.
if we do go a 3
Well,
month,
they're
we'll
gonna
be
start
okay.
right away. They're gonna start right away doing all the steps,
Right.
right? But are we gonna have a completed document with, no, probably not for a couple months, but I think at least we're getting the ball
Yeah,
rolling.
no, this is
Yeah,
good,
for
because
sure.
we should have a superintendent by then, so,
Absolutely, which will be great. Yeah.
alright, yeah.
Okay. So committee updates. Can't even remember why I put this on there.
Was this previously prior to our process being changed?
What do you mean?
How we're going to go about committee update reporting or committee reporting of our, how we,
Maybe how the directors report to
Yeah.
the board.
During our meeting, the streamlining part.
was that?
We already did that at the last general.
So
So
let's just skip it for now, and if you think of the
Perfect.
next couple things. we'll do
great,
that.
love it. Okay, complaints and concerns. I put this on here. I know that it's like we really don't have a good vehicle for this. I don't know what's been done in the past, what's happening now. And again, you know, I made an announcement about this, right? Any complaint or concern funnel to me, and then I will get it out to the committee of where it should go. One of the things, though, I think that we might consider, very similar to what city council does, is everything is, and I'm going to say a piece of paper, but I don't necessarily mean literally a piece of paper, but that it becomes a document. So what happens at city council is they say, okay, I have this document here, document number 4 or 5, whatever. I mean, I'm not saying it has to even be that formal, but this complaint came in. And this complaint has to do with buildings and grounds. And so here you go, buildings and grounds. So that there's a clear flow of where this information goes, rather than it just seems like it is so chaotic right now about it all coming, so what I'm suggesting is, should it be going to our board secretary? I'm actually looking for options. You know, what can we be doing about when someone has a concern or a complaint from a teacher, from a parent, from a key stakeholder? I mean, I believe that we're all on the same page, that every one of these things needs to be addressed, and I'm not saying it has to be addressed by us, and I'm not even saying we have to come up with a solution to it, because even on city council, the committee says, let's put this on file, right? We don't see an actionable item here, and so we put it on file. But you say at the meeting, you know, I appreciate, Mrs. Johnson bringing this to my attention, blah, blah, blah. We did a little research on this. We don't see it to be an issue right now. We're going to put it on file. But I just think that there needs to be a better flow of information.
Isn't that what we're doing currently, though? I mean, I'm fine with that. That's fine. I thought that's what we were gonna do.
I think we just need a central located position for complaints to go, and then they can't just, maybe they sit in file, but we just need a central place, because they're gonna come from all different places, but then we have to have a formal position.
Right, because I think kind of what Matt was saying before, I think it falls to the wayside, right? Like when Mark has given me certain things, and I want all of you to know it, and I'm just like, what's the follow-up on this, right? I mean, I'm almost,
What if we were to, so I have an idea to this, and maybe you'll like it.
maybe I'll like it.
Maybe.
We'll see.
All right. So,
It's a challenge.
is we get newer board members that don't have committees, as they learn where different what committees take on different things, maybe just have them be the facilitator. And instead of a chairmanship, they're the facilitator of their task, or their position becomes a facilitator of the complaints, and they delegate. Would you be okay with that?
I don't know that they would know, though.
But that's something that could be, if they do send it to the wrong committee, it's not a big deal. Then it just goes to a different committee. You know what I mean? It encourages, it drives the growth of the individual.
So what do we do in a case though where you know that someone is confiding in you that's complaining about something? See, to me, that's where you
have to have,
kind of like
If
file
you're-
it on your own and decide when to come forward with it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes people come to you and they want to remain anonymous.
well,
Right.
you have to use your best judgment. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just because I've
Okay,
gotten,
because we're not saying that, like,
right.
and I'm not sitting on anything now, but I'm just thinking, in the past, I know that there have been times that things have been shared with me that have said,
Yeah.
this
Colin,
doesn't go anywhere.
I don't like
you know?
talking to Colin. He smells funny or something like that.
Oh, I'm
know?
sure I got a few of them.
Right, that one.
Okay, so you know,
You noticed it too.
I did. Yeah, I just don't want to say anything too much. You know.
But yeah, okay, just wanted to verify that. So-
Yeah, yeah,
Because-
absolutely. I just think that,
but yeah,
I guess I'm
see-
thinking about all the times where I hear the phrase, I told somebody and no one followed up on it.
Yeah,
Right, and what I want is documentation that we can go back to. And maybe now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it loud, maybe it is again with the shared drive.
yeah, that's kind of what I was
Maybe it
thinking.
goes into the shared drive and that the chairperson, because we're all gonna have access to it.
Yep.
So we have some grid, we have an Excel spreadsheet, and it goes in there, and that chairman needs to bring it forward, or come up with something.
They're tasked with pulling that complaint put into their bin.
Route.
Well, and I need to understand the shared drive thing more. It's all about sharing to me, and I know we have access to it. So
Yes.
would it have, like, say, for example, folders?
Yes.
So, like, you could have a
Like here.
whatever folder for, okay.
It's just
Yep.
a hard drive.
So like say I got this right
All
here.
access to it.
This is just
Okay.
my documents here.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
go
just
into
all in the
that-
cloud.
Yeah, so then.
But you have to have permission. You know
Right.
how Joyce was sending us stuff and some
Didn't have
people
permission.
some people couldn't open it?
Right.
It's in her shared drive and she has to give you permission.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay, it's like a Google Doc. where you can-
Absolutely,
allows
yep,
access.
Allows access,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
Okay,
So like
and I agree with that though, because like, say you have a complaint about Kathy, and then nothing happens, and then something happens a month down the road, and there's a complaint about Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, there's a buildup there that you're like, "Geez, we need to address this.
Exactly.
Where right now, it's just kind of like,
Exactly, and
floating
it's
out
so,
there.
yeah, and it's so hard to keep that all organized. So I think
Yeah.
this would be a better way, is a shared drive to be able to do that.
yeah,
So-
and I think what's important is that we respond to those, but we're not always going to react immediately to them.
Correct.
Because otherwise we just become a complaint center and people are gonna think we have to do something with every single one of them.
Right,
It
I
may not
think-
always be appropriate,
right.
yeah.
I think that, hang on one second. I think the word is respond, right? Like
Yeah, respond to it.
I go back and I think about a lot of my perceived difficulty with the public is that they felt like they never got a response,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that we can do a better job of responding and be able to differentiate between I did respond. Maybe it's that you don't like my response, right? But I did respond,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a different issue, is that I didn't like that you put it on file. And, we did an investigation and we looked into it and we talked to the people and, but we took it seriously
Yeah,
and
or at least saying,
we're
I
responding.
recognize your complaint and we've put it into our system so that
Absolutely.
we have
Yep.
access to it in
Yeah.
the future.
Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would suggest, and I know there was some discussion on this previously, if an issue or a complaint comes through, that we make sure you ask the complainant right? Whoever brought the complaint, hey, have you brought this up to the principal or whoever? And what I would like to see, and I know there was some discussion with this over with the Washington issue, is some sort of a follow-up from that principal and say, hey, how was this handled? Was this resolved? Just to make sure that they got back to them, right? And at least someone talked to them.
Right, and I think, you guys have seen a couple different of my correspondence about this same issue, right? And I think if we had that shared drive, it would be easier for me to go in there and put it in there so that everybody, rather than having to do, and then it'd be easier for me to follow up, I think, because you could see that.
Right.
So 9130, public requests, suggestions, or complaints, we have a policy on it.
He's on the policy.
Well,
There's
he
a
is the
level-
policy czar now.
He is.
There's a level, so first it's supposed to go to the superintendent for consideration. And then there's a first level, second level, and third level. So, I mean, like I said, the hard work has been done, it's just the follow-up isn't being publicly done or.
Or it's not communicated, right? I mean, and that's,
Because of the too many ways of communication. I mean, we're
Yes.
getting Messenger,
Yep.
we're getting Facebook, we're
Yep.
getting
text,
Gmail, we're getting, my personal text,
Yep.
phone calls. Like, we need to somehow have a gold standard in our district that those things go to, because. there's
Well,
so
and-
many
Everything should go to
ways.
email. Sorry to interrupt, but
What?
everything should go to your email. That way there's a record of it.
No.
But that's not
it's-
how everyone
that's not how
chooses
people
to
work.
communicate. Yeah.
People choose to communicate.
now,
from
we
Facebook.
did have a community member that made a suggestion about having a complaint box or a concern box. Now, we could do that, where on our website, there's a little click, and that can go into a centralized place, so that everyone is getting the same information, which, not a bad idea.
As long as we put a disclaimer that this is public information and we're gonna use it to evaluate, and you might, we have to you have to preemptively present that to the community, that it's not just a Twitter feed, that's the
I
best
know
way I
that-
can articulate
Right.
it quickly.
Right.
Like,
There's
it's
a
not a
danger.
Twitter thing, like, we,
No, I am very much against, if that's gonna be, so everybody can read the.
No,
no.
I'm just
Okay.
saying that it's, people nowadays.
Jeez,
People
relax.
nowadays want instant gratification, so if they have a bad day and they go to that button and then they feel better about expressing themselves, like, people need to use that with discernment.
Yeah, we
Which
can't.
I believe in people, so I'm saying that, but it has to be used with discernment.
I don't want to open cans of worms. That's my hesitation. and stuff.
Yeah, I don't either, but
Transparency with worms.
Yeah. I would like to add, though, that what complaints we put on file, they should always have someone's name attached to it. If something is received anonymously, it's very hard to take it seriously.
oh, absolutely.
I agree with that.
It is. And I think we need to and again, one of my hopes out of the strategic plan is, a way to, just a couple announcements, or I'm not sure yet, but you noticed at the meetings, I'm trying to, at the end, make some, say things to the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would be one of them, is how do we, if you're gonna bring up a complaint and it's anonymous, we can't really do a whole lot with that. We'd love to, we wanna take it seriously, but in a lot of situations, we don't have a name attached to it, and I can't turn it over to HR, or I can't turn it over to the superintendent. So please, if you're willing to come to that level,
Yeah.
so let's put a pause on it right now and come back to it.
And we
Let's
think
just
it-
think about it and what might be some other options, ideas people
Yeah.
have.
That
Sorry.
hasn't really happened.
The last thing I want to say about this is, we need to have an informed discussion or an education to our parents and our students and our staff, that, because like, it's all written in here,
Yeah.
how we're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
We need to have a way of conveying and educating, I don't want to say it that way, but I will, I guess, educating our community of how we should go through this the right way. So that's where preemptive, and that's where we're lacking, obviously, the transparency to describe how we should file a complaint correctly.
Well, I think, and I will go a step further to say, I think you're right, we have a policy. The problem is what I've been saying probably for the last year is I think the reason why it's not that we don't want to use the chain of command. I don't think any of us here have the
Trust.
time, right, to do all what we're doing with the community, okay? The problem is we have no idea, and the feedback we've gotten is that they don't trust that anyone is going to follow up on and we don't know. And that's why, and to be fair, we have been taught that as board members, right? Did you go to the principal? Did you go to the superintendent? Yes, that should be our first course of action, right? But when they say, I did, right, is that then, I did and they didn't listen to me, right? So then, again, that opens it up to a different arena. And again, I just think we have the policy, but we need a way that the community member or the teacher or the staff person, whoever it is, that they felt like they were listened to. Maybe they didn't get the answer that they wanted, but they felt heard.
So that's why we should just have it like a formal document that is on the shared drive that then all the board members now and in the future can be aware of the complaint so that we can prove that there's a track record. If a parent or a student or they have a complaint, they file it, then it goes to the shared drive, and then there's a record of the complaint, and then we can track how many complaints, something happened, then we could have some transparency that the community can make corrections through the board.
Like I don't want any of us to, and I know we all have, right? Oh, I never heard that, right? I mean, I don't want us to feel that way.
So what policy is it, 99? I just want to look at it again.
9130, public requests, suggestions, or complaints.
And I've read it before, but to find it again is something else.
I know.
And maybe that's like a good reminder for all of us, just to throw out there, say, hey, read 9130.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Just like maybe,
Let's add that,
maybe
Colin.
just once in a while, that could be on the calendar, read these policies.
Right.
Or,
Refresh.
Refresh.
All board review 9130.
Yep.
I'd just like to add real quick, if we fix some of the policies, like we probably get.
Is that PO?
complaints. So.
Well, I think so too. I think when we start doing some different things, I think you're right. I think we are.
9130, so it must be under,
PO.
9,000. So.
It's under what?
Hold on.
All right.
Yeah, it must be PO,
PO?
personnel, I think is
Oh.
what he's referencing.
So then so the things that we have for complaints and concerns are just, currently all complaints and concerns are being funneled to Stacy. The complaints and concerns get brought to shared drive as the new move forward, and the appropriate chair that responds and pulls into their committee.
Correct. So we will start this then after July 15th
Okay,
because we don't have a shared drive yet.
effective July 15th. Gotcha. All right, great.
I think this is just attrition. I mean, this is what has to happen because the technology advancement, now we can centralize the complaints so that it can be more transparent to our public. And the public hasn't been given this information or the board or whatever, and then we can rebuild trust. I mean, that's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next one is update on technology.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
So I did reach out to our Jessica Dupre regarding that, and she stated that the company that we originally hired to complete the work was unable to provide the necessary components and were unable to proceed. And that was around January 2022. So they requested a quote from another place, without mentioning where, March of 2022. They provided us a quote to completely overhaul that room as it relates to technology.
This room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about this room. Current status, we're unsure, but the quote was provided to Superintendent Holtzman in April 2022, and he was going to talk it over with the current board president. And since then, a lot has changed. So obviously, he was going to talk it over with former President Nichols. So she asked if we would like to resend the quote to Superintendent Holtzman, and with the assistance of the Building and Grounds, they would coordinate a vision and then interpret that to the vendor, and ensure proper training and support is given. She did attach a layout of what the proposed changes would be.
It's pretty elaborate.
Yeah, so it was, did you get to
Pretty cool, though.
Yeah, so I mean,
It does look expensive. Yes, it does.
that, I mean, so that's the thing that I'm kind of wondering.
But we don't have the number.
We don't. And also on top of that, there was another aspect to that that I would like to see too. And that was the ability to, where is that? The ability to see on a visual. So with, the reason that you would want to have this room updated, my belief would be so that those who are at home or virtual can see what's going on, right, and hear what's going on, because we've heard so many times that that is not possible. So what I was thinking also could do, as long as we're doing it in conjunction, because one of the things that they'd have is everybody has a mic, so that would shore up the audio, but also to have a yay or nay or abstain option, some sort of like electronic ability, so that those that are out there know where the vote was, who voted. You know, kind of like if you tune into like C-SPAN. I don't know if any of you guys.
Well, but city council does this too.
City council does, and I mean I nerd out a little bit when it comes to politics and government, which might be an understatement, but being able to see where those ayes and nays kind of lie, people do appreciate, because then they understand, well, this person's voting this, then they can ask that person, why did you vote that way, rather than it just hearing and them saying, well, who said that? You know, because let's be real here. I mean, I sound so much like Kathy, and you know, I mean, you never know. So.
Well, Lori usually does ask if there's any confusion, but I will say from watching other board meetings, many times when there's a vote, they'll go by person.
Oh.
Or, like if there's a motion, it's always the board president then who says something like, you know, Phipps made motion 1, Leska made, you know, motion 2, or you could do something like that on that order too, because it's still vocalizing it so people can hear.
Sure.
Instead of just the button. But like there's other ways to go about that meeting procedure that
Sure.
they deal with that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze again. But I do agree, like when I even listen to our past meetings, because I
so
do that quite
difficult, yeah.
often, sometimes my voice stands out really well. And then sometimes I sound really muffled and I'm like, well, good thing I knew what I said because I wouldn't understand it.
Right.
So I am concerned about spending a lot of money with technology. Of course, I'm not a big tech person, you know, but like my outside of the box thinking with budget and finance idea, what would happen to all that infrastructure money that we put into this room if, for say, we
Correct.
decided not to have this anymore? So why can't we be using those microphones at least? To me,
Well,
that's the biggest downfall.
So
pitfall.
here's another thing though to that is, you know, we each have a computer that's usually presented to us. If it is a, you know, even if maybe there's a system where we're just, I mean, most computers have a camera, most computers have a microphone. That's right there. If there's a way to tie that in, and I
The
mean,
mic doesn't work though.
huh?
I mean, it works for us individually, but if you have your mic on and I have my mic on.
There's feedback.
We get all that feedback, and we've had lots of issues with that in the past.
Well, you can take that same mic though and tie it right into your computer, right? So then it's right. There's a, because if you look at the projection or the
Okay, let's though, I don't want to try to figure out how we're gonna do that, right?
Well, all I'm trying to do is just display it. So like instead of it being, you can put it right into a computer, because then when we go to Wilson for a larger board meeting, it travels with us rather than it be just in this room. So have the ability to have that travel with us is beneficial.
Okay, so do you think that, a couple things, could we give this to Buildings and Grounds?
Yes.
Number one. Number two would be, can we have Buildings and Grounds communicate with IT. What do we have now that we could use that we're not, if we have something? And then the last piece being, can we get a few more quotes? And I would suggest trying to look at some of our local people, like Extreme Audio or AV, I can't remember the one on Washington Street.
I have a guy that took care of my office. He's from Two Rivers, and he does large companies all over the state. He said, I asked him point blank, I'm like, just out of curiosity, is something you could maybe handle? And he's like, yeah, totally can do
Yeah,
that.
because I asked my guy, and he's like, that's too big for me.
Okay.
So if Buildings and Grounds would take that and
Yeah, I'll-
follow up on all of this, that'd be
We
great.
need to know a scope of what we're trying to go for. So is it the audio problem in this room or the audio for meetings? Is that what the problem is?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really audio, because
Okay.
no one needs to see if my makeup looks good
Right.
or not that day. But, you know, like,
So-
what about, like,
That's not working, obviously? Is that what?
not that great?
Okay.
I mean, what about these?
I have that same
You know,
thing.
those-
Right, headsets.
A headset,
Mhm.
like that just does a little thing,
Sure.
you each have one?
Yeah,
I have one of those in my office that I use for podcasts.
Okay, so let's kind of rewind. So the quote thing about.
Yes.
I think that's probably an extravagant, beautiful, nice thing that we probably shouldn't invest in because of our financial situation. That's just my opinion.
Mhm.
I could be over, but now updating technology, we could probably do that feasibly at a low cost for audio purposes for our meetings. So that should be tasked to the Buildings and Grounds, and then we should get a plan of action so we can fix it. 'Cause
right.
our constituents need to be able to hear it.
I mean,
Yes.
this is, I mean,
But it needs to be able to
the-
travel with us is what my
Yeah, well,
concern is.
Something like this, maybe just this needs to be updated, you know?
Or headsets?
Or get better.
Or like the little
right,
Bluetooth-y
something,
things
something.
or something.
Okay,
But
so,
it has to, just my, it's kind of
So,
gotta have to be
so
probably.
it's being referred to buildings and grounds.
It can't be individual, because otherwise then there's gonna be backfeeding every time.
yeah. Don't
You
for,
know, Bluetooth or something like that?
Yeah, because when I speak, if our all mics are all on, otherwise there's gotta be a mic czar.
Yeah, but what do they do like when,
city-
like you have like plays and stuff and everybody's wearing these because they're singing out loud and. I mean,
And
there's
it's
gotta
all
be a way
being
to do that,
recorded.
right?
Wireless
Band
mics.
guy- a band
wireless
guy-
mic.
Yeah, so there's wireless mics. I mean, I used to do theater, long time ago. but-
right, but yeah, she's talking about why isn't there feedback if we each have a
Like,
wireless
why
mic?
couldn't we do that if we have wireless?
There
Like-
wouldn't, it just
Oh,
depends
you
on
just
what your
got
sound
little-
system would, you know, you
Okay.
have a sound bar.
So we should just make a scope
into
to
that.
improve the audio
Yeah.
in meetings.
And we're not,
And it to
we
be able
can,
to
we
be
can just,
portable.
we can have that technician or whoever that expert is, they can take care of that.
Our IT might have the ability.
There you go.
We just haven't
So-
delegated that we need it done.
So we're referring to buildings and grounds, all right. And to, and the scope of work is for sound.
Improve the quality of communications for recording purposes.
Improve,
Well, and for all those people that can't be here,
Sound
right? I
and-
mean,
Yep, that's.
or for anybody that wants to go back and to review these meetings. I think it's important that it's clear.
But we can hold it to audio. We don't
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
open up the door of.
yeah, I don't need visual, I don't, yeah, exactly, I'm in agreement, you know, people
Tony.
don't need to see my makeup.
Yeah, I agree, no one wants to see that, but if we could, also consider the idea of allowing public input remotely. I know the city council people have that ability, and just in the spirit of transparency, and if people, for whatever reason, can't get out to the meeting but would like to participate, I don't think it'll be that expensive. I guess we'll see what the numbers come back with, but, I mean, this isn't gonna be
Can
like
you
tens of
put that,
thousands.
can you put that down, because that's not really on our agenda, but can you put that down about options for public input?
Well, how about I just put it on the update to technology, virtual public input.
Perfect.
I think that'd be great. I mean,
Perfect.
some people can't get out here, but they might wanna participate, and I think we should encourage people to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Key fob. I know some of us have talked about having a key fob that we could have, especially to our door here. So I guess what I wanted is who do we want to appoint to kind of go down that road to get the key fob, make the request. I kind of feel like it's a building and grounds thing because it's a building and grounds thing. My guess is they probably hand out the key fobs. But I just wanted to, I know people have talked about it, and I wanted to make sure I followed up on it, so here I am.
Okay, so I've had the discussion beyond that meeting, and I think rather than us putz around, hey, do you have the key fob? Hey, do you have the key fob? Just issue it. Honestly, we're all adults. If we're messing around with, it's just for this room. If we're messing around, then you're held accountable to it. Honestly, it's just I had access to City Hall when I was an alderman. Here's your key fob. Then we had, if I needed to check my mail, then say we received mail. There's a spot here. Go get your mail.
Could you get into the mayor's office?
No, I could not.
Okay.
I'd never tried. I don't know, maybe I could, but I never tried because for obvious reasons. I didn't want to put myself in that situation. Anybody that's not smart enough to be put in that, or to put themselves in that situation, hey, sorry, you're going to deal with the ramifications of messing around.
Okay. Other people? Any?
So access to this room, obviously, I think it could be to any one of us. I mean, but if you want to just leave it to the vice well, it's going to be the high turnover rate's the problem. So that's why it could be to the committee.
But the fobs can be deactivated like immediately because they're electronic.
Everybody should.
And
have access.
you can monitor who's going in and out at what times too.
Exactly.
So if it's being abused, obviously, then you confront what was going on here? What was the issue?
So in that spirit, then obviously, I think every board member should be issued a key fob, and then it could be deactivated upon their, re-election or not. And then obviously, I thought that we could have transparency to the whole district buildings, so that there would be, biggest thing that our superintendent wanted to say is that we had a boots on the ground problem. So I think the transparency of the board members being able to go into the schools would help the boots on the ground and the best effort and the goodwill-fulness to help our children succeed. So it was just having an idea outside the box to provide more transparency to our parents, that the board members are directly involved with the success of the children on a school-to-school basis as well. So that's what my rationale of having key fobs for the board members is. I just think transparency is what we need, and more parents. And
So what you're saying is that we should have a universal fob to each building.
There's probably just one key fob that has access to the buildings or the schools, and then obviously it can be tracked. And if you have access, if the superintendent wanted to know why you went in that building, you can tell them. I mean, it's complete transparency, and then the oversight can be to the superintendent and to the board. I mean, it's not.
I don't have an issue with it. To me, there is the accountability of, if it's trackable, you're fine. I guess, I don't.
Kathy?
It's not pressing for me.
I see both sides to it. Like, I think last time we talked about this, I'm like, just if you had a Stacy to this room, I'm fine with it. But on the other hand, like, we have been chosen to be representatives for our district. So why aren't we allowed, and why do we need permission to enter a building? So that's one thing to think of. The other thing is, I already shared this with you, Stacy, is that there are students who have universal fobs for our district.
What?
Yes, actually, and I spoke to Lee Tennis about that, and they would like some names so that they can do it, because this is one of those anonymous situations. At least it's anonymous to me, because I don't know, because one of the things that happened, over Memorial Day was the senior prank that happened at Lincoln High School, and the question is, who let these kids in the building? So again, talk about policy, right? I mean, do we have a policy on our fobs, and even staff?
That should be technology.
Right,
maybe.
staff that are protecting those fobs, right? I mean, I think about in my business, the nuclear plant, right? I mean, you have a badge to get into the protected area. Now, of course, there are lots of other things that you need to do to get through actually into the protected area. But
Oh, yeah.
you need to take care of your badge, right? So again, I think, so a couple things. One, Kathy,
I will get your name.
thank you. And then the other piece is, do we want I think this needs to be a board decision. And so if we're gonna put this forward, I think there needs to be a motion and a second to bring it to the board, that we each get a key fob. Now, we have a policy on entering,
Visitors.
yes.
And board members.
Right, we do, and it's very specific on that we need to ask permission to go into the school. I mean, so if we're gonna change
This
that,
has to be updated then.
Yeah,
I mean-
As board members, we have to ask permission?
yes,
So,
Why?
the policy czar could probably read it to you.
what was the number? I can find it
There's
real
so
quick.
many numbers.
No, okay, just talk about something else for 2 minutes. and I'll
well,
find
how
it.
about we send it to Buildings and Grounds, and in the meantime, Buildings and Grounds takes it up.
When are
Tech.
they meeting again?
It's not even scheduled.
Is it building
Maybe
and
it
grounds
is.
or is it technology? Like, do we know it belongs in building and grounds?
Well, it's building access, right?
It is, but it could be technology too,
technology,
though.
too.
I'm not really
But,
sure.
but
Well,
where
but
does
I think-
technology go? Technology, there's no committee for technology, really, right?
Right, that's why I'm thinking building and
Oh,
grounds
right.
at least could,
I was just thinking like
Yeah, where the,
department-wise
yeah.
in the district.
I think
Right.
it should be
Who
handled
deals
with the
with it?
executive committee, though, to be honest with you guys.
okay.
That's what I think, and I'm on buildings and grounds, so.
So, all right, I guess, what's is there, I mean, I'm okay with,
I just think that it's only gonna have weight if the whole board agrees with this. And so I think if there's a motion and a second out of this committee to bring it to the
sure,
floor
I'll make that motion.
on the 14th, then I'm,
What are we motioning?
So I'll make a motion that we give access to all board members or unfettered access to all board members to the school district, and that the policies be reviewed accordingly.
Does that work?
you say something about the fob.
Oh, sorry, that the via a trackable fob.
I'll second.
Background check. Yeah,
Well-
that could be done with the board.
Yeah. So and then, all right. So you're the
All in favor of bringing it forward to the board?
I.
Aye, okay.
All right.
So I need to make that as an agenda item.
Was it under operations or it's gotta be under relations. So,
I
School
just,
visitors, that's what it is.
it just makes me wonder why that policy exists, that we have to ask permission to go to
Come on.
schools.
Yeah.
Well, it's because we give power to the principal, that's what, and then it's a hierarchy of power.
Yes.
Which is good when,
I agree.
when we have it all.
I think I do think it's good. I just I'm not quite sure that policy, in the spirit of what we're trying to do, really says it. And I just think if we can review that,
I got it.
yeah,
So individual board members who are interested in visiting schools or classrooms on an unofficial basis shall make the appropriate arrangements with the principal in keeping with board bylaws. The board member visits shall not be considered to be official unless designated as such by the board. Board members shall be visiting as an interested individual in a similar capacity or a parent or citizen of the community. These visits should not be considered to be an inspection or a supervisory in nature. If during a visit to the school or program, a board member observes a situation or conditions that causes concern, he or she discuss the situation first with the principal. As soon as convenient or appropriate, such reports, discussions shall be considered an official one from the board, not an official one from the board. If the board member believes the situation or condition is serious enough, he or she may visit or wish to also inform the district administrator, so the superintendent. So, there's a little
Very
bit more in the beginning.
It is, but and so I guess I to that though, you know, there is a process, and I mean, it is there. I don't know,
But
never
is it the
mind.
right process?
Right.
And when was the last time that was revised?
And if it's
1987.
And if it's bylaws, there might be certain requirements too that need to be done. But just by bringing this forward to the general meeting, that at least we're having that discussion of why, what, and, you know, can we move forward? Should we move forward? You know, it's okay to just have the discussion. Let's just have the discussion then. Cool.
It's just we're gonna have to change policy
Right.
if
Yeah.
we would like to move
Correct.
forward with this, which, and that's what I agree, and I think we need to update our policy to provide transparency for our children because of the influx of problematic situations, behaviors, lack of trust in our district. I mean, I could keep naming them off, but I mean, our people want more transparency, obviously.
Sure.
And I don't necessarily want a fob,
I
but
don't
I
either.
can see why we should have them, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Yep.
Especially in light of like, kind of our current situation, the current, I hate using the word culture, but it's kind of true.
Right.
So,
So the motion to give unfiltered access to board members via FOB,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Upon background check is what I would like to add to it,
I'm friendly with that.
Especially for
I
fifths.
have one,
especially for me.
I've already had them.
Right, because you're the, do we have background checks done
No,
on
not
us?
being an elected official, we don't need one, but I have one because I was an employee of the
Oh,
district.
well, so I agree. I think we do need to have them. If you're gonna have a fob,
Colin needs one.
Because
Yeah.
that's
I'm a
a
shiesty guy.
requirement of a staff member,
okay,
so
Right.
we're
I think
not
that's
staff members, we're citizens that got elected by the people. So
Yeah.
technically, we could be,
total
could be
jerks.
criminals,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
so that's kind of the meat in it, I want to protect our district,
well, and you have continuity.
so,
I probably haven't had one for a really long
well,
now,
you've got
so
in
they could
trouble.
always redo it. I'm worried.
okay,
In case anyone's listening, I'm shaking my head no.
right. Okay, so hiring of the HR director. So I've been sending you guys some correspondence about this. One of my concerns that I had brought to Joyce is that, you know, both Joyce and Mark are leaving, and that I know they put together a committee of, committee to interview, so on and so forth. I mean, and you guys have seen the emails. So one of the things I was concerned about is with both of them leaving, you know, these are probably our two most important positions. Should there, since our interim person is not selected yet, should there be someone from personnel to be part of that process?
Yes.
And
Resoundingly.
and, you know, Joyce did her due diligence to ask the attorney, and the attorney did say that there was nothing, it definitely should come from the board, though, that the board unanimously, or I shouldn't say unanimously, but the board directive that, yes, that be something. So I'm asking.
Make a motion.
I'm asking someone, or if anyone is willing to make a motion, to have, and I'll be the person as head of personnel, to be part of that process, just, I mean, I don't know that I'm gonna be doing anything.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I didn't roll my eyes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
I'd like to
Okay.
make a motion
I
that the head of personnel be included on the hiring of HR, the director moving forward.
In this scenario?
In this scenario, yes.
Why don't you do it for director, the whole, you give it the authority.
Actually, yeah, I think I would like to do that. I'm going to change my motion before it's being,
Well, we don't have any directors, though, that are up right now.
doesn't matter. What if there's others? This just sets that until our full-time superintendent is put into place, I would like to make the motion that the head of personnel be included in all hiring of director positions.
It gives you a lot of power.
I would like to
Which
make
I
it-
like the oversight. We need the oversight.
I would like to amend that,
I'm
or
open.
put an addendum,
Okay.
so that is true for the school year of 22-23.
What if we go into 2024 with we still have interim?
We can still add, we can,
So you're setting a sunset to
I'm
it?
setting a sunset, and then we can always readjust it.
Cool,
Just
okay,
that it
yeah.
covers us for the next
Yeah,
year.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah?
Yeah,
I think it just kind of makes sense.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that has to go to the full board. Okay. Okay, so the gender pronoun policy, this came up, I can't even remember where, but part of it is we see what's happening in Kiel, okay? I mean, that's one thing. I know that I have seen, I've seen a document that came out. It was at a school, and I'm not sure if it, I guess I don't really know, do we have, what is our stance on pronouns? What are staff being told to do, that kind of stuff? So I feel like we're in the investigation stage of kind of, can we find out some more information about what we've done so far? Because I don't know what we've done. And then moving forward, I'd like to be proactive on a procedure, how we're going to handle this so that we don't end up with a situation like what's going on with Kiel. So I'm going to stop there and just as far as moving forward with this, where do we go?
I know that there was something about pronouns in that presentation at Washington,
Yes.
and, my thought process is, just again, what's the purpose of public education, and, do we want, like, where do pronouns fit into, a child's long-term academic success? And, my thinking is that, again, just looking at, I think all this plays into the sexualization of children and grooming of children. And I think frankly that we should consider just, definitely finding out more to the extent of what's happening in the district, right? Do we have any policies on that now? And I think that we consider an approach where, we don't want to encourage that, and we've got to encourage people to focus more on, the basics.
Well, my devil's advocate is that if someone identifies their gender and they want to use those pronouns that fit that gender, and they are ostracized or teased or whatever, harassed is a good word, harassed by it, that's going to lead to emotional problems with that child, social emotional problems with that child, to the point where it's going to affect their academics, right? That would be the what's happening. So this isn't necessarily about education as relationships in the school, and how are we going to navigate when this arises, right? I mean, that to me, that's what it's about. I don't see this as we are going to teach about this. I know that it came up in that presentation, but I'm more looking at and what happened in Kiel was a relational issue, right? And to me, bullying is bullying. If there were evidence that someone was discriminating, harassing, whatever it may be, against someone, and again, how do we define that, right? Here, the situation was, I mean, again, we don't know. It's all allegation. We don't really know except what was in the news. But you have a couple students saying that I don't understand this, or maybe I don't even want to. I don't believe that I should have to, right? Use this language, okay? On the other hand, if they were doing something that ostracized or harassed these students, that's a different story,
Right.
We
right?
have a bullying policy.
Right, that's where I would think it would go under.
Well, and then on top of that,
Is bullying, though, not using
Oh.
the correct term that somebody wants to be called? Is that bullying?
so here's the thing that I think of. When we have this, so it is going to be discussed in the courts. You do have a right to free speech, so it is a free speech aspect. That's why Will was involved in that issue.
Is involved,
It-
still.
Yeah, and quite honest, we have a bullying policy. So we have a bullying policy, so that's covered. You know, bullying is unacceptable in all aspects. I don't care what it is, not acceptable. The aspect of free speech, it's a constitutional. We have a constitutional right to free speech, so you have the right to. However, you can't, yell, I'm even, I don't even want to say
Right.
it. You can't say certain things in a crowded movie theater for specific reasons. So I think this could be a slippery slope. So I don't know if weighing in on it is appropriate at this point. I think it should definitely be.
Are our teachers, though, and hang on one second, Matt, are our teachers being given this document that I saw, right, that was in a classroom? Are they being given this and told that you must not only put this on your address, your signature line on emails, what your own
I see what you're
personal
saying.
is? Are they being told that they need to use this in the classroom, and that all
That
that's
shouldn't be happening.
No.
If it is happening, it shouldn't be happening.
I've seen it in some emails that one or two of our
okay. So I guess that's the other thing. I mean, I think preemptively, right? I think that we need to figure out what we want. How are we going to navigate this, because it's going to come up.
it's going to be a
Well,
slippery
and I
slope.
think that on that whole notion of free speech, I agree with free speech, but I also think that there's a time and place for it. And you shouldn't, when you're at work, you should make sure that you're working, right? And, that's my thought on it, especially issues that are deemed controversial, right? And there's a lot of people, that feel strongly on both sides. I would argue probably a lot more would say that it's probably not a place for it in school, but, I just think that we need to be neutral on this stuff. Like, I'm not saying, obviously no discrimination, no bullying, like that should be, nipped in the bud if it's happening and when it's happening. But I also don't think that if there's emails or communications going out encouraging teachers to use pronouns, then we need to find out where's that coming from and why is that happening.
So is it kind of like the optional mask issue? That it's optional if a staff person wants to put that on their signature line,
No,
and it's optional to, as a staff person, if they know a student wants to be called something different?
I have no issue with that. I mean, if somebody wants to say, hey, call me the whatever, so I don't know. I don't even know about that.
Yeah.
So just
Okay,
whatever.
So I think what we're trying to address is compelled speech. So what I think we could do, and I'm not a lawyer, but we can consult a lawyer, is that we don't require that you compel to make people identify as what they would like to be called. So you don't compel, or you don't force people to do, because we want to protect the First Amendment of free speech, so we don't compel it. So that means we don't require that you have to identify it. You don't require it to people to identify a certain way. They can identify that way, but that's not required. So that's how we have to provide freedom for our students and our staff, but we don't force them to identify a certain way. So
I
we
think
can
that
write
that's
a
a-
policy as a board saying that we are non-discriminatory, that we are not going, but we're not gonna compel that you identify by a pronoun. Like, that's your choice. So like, that's how we protect ourselves, but then we can make a stance that's saying that we're not for it. Because we want people to express themselves freely. What we don't want is compelled speech, forcing people to put a pronoun down.
Right. And if I could just add, not too long ago, you know, a lot of people in the medical profession or psychology, you know, I don't know if you guys read what that parent brought a few weeks back, but they called it like gender dysphoria, right?
That's a
So
real thing, yeah.
I'm not sure it's appropriate for public schools in tax dollars specifically to be supporting or propagating, encouraging this type of what a lot of people consider to be confusion. And again, you know, I hear what you're saying. We have to be sensitive to all sides, but I also think that, you know, we have a responsibility to the community to make sure that, you know, at some point you have to draw the line, right? And, you know, you gotta just, frankly, just stop the wokeness, right? This is permeating our society at every level, and our schools have totally deviated from what they should be.
So do you guys think that maybe the best course of action is maybe for us to consult one of our attorneys to talk about this? Or here's the one that I don't know about, is that if a parent and a child have a student has decided in their family that they are what their pronoun is to be, and they have asked the school to please do this as a family, as a parent. I think, is that okay?
Okay, so here's the one of the downsides. So we have 5,000 kids. So instead of saying, Stacy is going to the store, she went. Now all of a sudden, someone wants to be called goat. So now I have to remember with 5,000 kids and who we address that Stacy went to the store. But it's goat went. I mean, where do we stop the insanity? I'm super conservative with this, and maybe I should just abstain from the way I personally feel, but I really lean far more toward what Tony is saying, because at what point does it all stop? Where did this even start? And honestly, I see some of this as being like, oh, let's have fun with this. I want to be called,
Sure.
Right.
she, he, or I want to be, you know what I mean? Like, where does it stop? And where did it start? And I don't think that I would necessarily say.
And
the
I
right
want
things.
to, just before you say that, I wanna put a cap on this right now, and let's come up with a solution.
Yeah.
What is a solution?
I
Matt?
don't
Solution is that we can make a stance as a district that we are not forcing our employees or our staff under their First Amendment right of free speech to follow, we're not requiring our staff to classify that person or that child.
Pronoun identification.
Yeah, I mean, so we're not requiring their staff, and we can make a stance on that, and we can all stand behind that. And then if we get sued, the First Amendment right will protect, unless the federal comes down, but the state constitution will protect the First Amendment right of an employee to call the person by what they feel they are. So that's where the First Amendment of the employee needs to be protected.
Yeah.
Now, the district, a parent can ask, or a student can ask to be called that, but it's under the discretion of the employee to call them. And that's where I think we can make a stance saying that we're not gonna force because that's what I think that they're trying to do, is force the district to say, well, you need to not be discriminatory, which, but we're trying to protect the employees of the district to have their free speech as well.
But we can't have some employees doing it and some not.
That's freedom. I mean,
Okay,
that's
so-
the
so-
First Amendment.
Okay,
Like, we
all
can't
right.
improve, we can't,
Okay.
that's the line, if we believe in the Constitution, like,
Yeah.
that's the
Fair
line.
work though, I mean, I think we might need to talk to the attorney about
Yeah.
the First Amendment and how it applies when you're at work, right?
Well, that and you're in a, but this is also a public forum too, right? I mean, this
Sure,
is a
and-
this isn't a private company, this is a public company.
And the board is at the top, am I wrong?
We
Right?
could
I
use
mean,
some
we could
guidance. And
create
maybe-
policy, and our policy could be, hey, you know, we're not gonna talk about, grooming or sexualization. I think this all plays into a broader, issue.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, just, you know, training our kids from a young age on issues that frankly have no place in public education. These are issues that should be dealt with at home, and I get where you're coming from, and I agree we shouldn't be bullying anybody, but I have a big problem with tax dollars supporting this, and
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Okay, let's solution.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Just because we have a bullying policy, we don't need to do anything there. I agree. You know, the boils down to just what we're requiring. We should not be requiring. That's it.
Okay, so how would everyone feel if we consulted an attorney on coming out with a statement about the non-requirement and the facets of that?
Sure.
And I think before we do that, I think we should just get an opinion. Here's what we'd like to do, and what from a legal perspective.
Are you having correspondence with any of our current attorneys right now on any items?
Just the
That one?
yeah.
So maybe just add that, ask them. I mean, would you be okay with,
Yeah,
cool, just, you know, drop a,
and he's referring to Attorney Macy.
I'll just say what a smart attorney will say is less is more, and they'll say, don't open yourself up to lawsuits by declaring. That's what an attorney will tell you.
That's
Okay.
what I was just thinking.
But I'm saying, we need to make a stance, because the community has spoken, and we wanna make a stance, and we wanna defend that stance, because that's the only way, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, that's the only way that it'll get challenged, is if somebody wants to sue the.
Okay, so and I guess so. I think what you're saying is, I know you said this, and I maybe
Three
just
times.
I didn't hear it. Yes, I didn't hear it. It's the we will not require our staff to use pronouns. That's and if a staff person does, that's their right
Prerogative.
to do it.
Yep.
I honestly think that we could probably take it a step further, and, you know, again, the broader issue for me is the grooming and
I know.
sexualization of children. So at what point do you draw the line, right? So I think that really the question we should be asking if we come up with a policy is say, hey, what is, you know, the objective of public education? And at what point did it become our jobs to confuse little children about sex, or even talk to them about sex? You know, and I think that's a totally fair question, and honestly, if we're gonna have an honest conversation about it, that's the question we need to be asking. And I'm not saying, you know, if someone wants to use pronouns, okay, like, but I think we have some sway at the policy level as a board to say, hey, we're gonna move away from this, you know, and our employees.
Okay, so what about this? What do you guys think about, what if this becomes a part of our strategic plan, that we sit down and we come up with this? Because what you're talking about is
It's huge.
Yeah, I'm not.
our board coming down with a
that gets messy.
And willing to open us up.
philosophy, not a philosophy,
Focusing on the basics, I mean, that to me makes sense.
Yeah.
you're
He's
right.
and that's
You're
the
right.
PC that's been controlling us
I
for
know.
years.
I know.
So, like, that's what I'm saying, if we're all, as a board, if all seven of us, we vote, then we can say that we're agreeing to put our line in the sand, that we're gonna stand behind, that there's a boy and a girl. And then we gotta live with the consequences, which I'm okay with living the consequences. Now, on a personal level, we might get sued, I mean, I don't know, but we can't let fear control us if we believe that about this, our district has to be represented that way.
Yes,
Go ahead,
Colin.
So I mean, we're all in agreement. Let's just make it so that there's no force that
What is that?
I wondered if it's my phone.
Oh, that there's, I mean, we just had an agreement that we can not require that this be said. Once we get into the realm of taking it that extra step, now we have to take it even further, and now we have to jumble through the proper language, we have to do all those other different things, and it's half-cocked. I completely against doing that, because we have no starting point, no, I mean, you're gonna be dealing with, I mean, if you're gonna put forward something like that, I think it should be put forward in a manner that is very clear and specific so that we don't open ourselves up to lawsuits and liabilities. I don't have an interest in being sued right now. Now, do I stand for that? Yeah, I stand for that. I'm okay with saying that. That, you know, I don't believe in that. I believe, but that is not, that's my if we're going to write a policy now on that, or take it that extra step to push that agenda even further, or that statement even further, it better be clear cut, because you better believe that that's going to be ending in a lawsuit.
It's not an agenda. I look at it as redirecting our focus, right? And again,
Fine, then do it in a focus, but you're going to be, so what you're doing is you're saying a very clear thing that there's already there's a lawsuit going on. And we are going to delve into the avenue of opening ourselves up for a lawsuit needlessly. We can do this very clearly by just saying it is not required to state that, and then down the road when we're trying to figure this, you know, how we move forward with what you're suggesting, it needs to be having a much greater care than rather than just saying, we're not going to do that because this is.
Well, I think there's two separate issues here.
There is, and that's why I don't think that that's the best avenue of approach.
here's my thought process real quick is we need to stop pussyfooting around it and just calling it what it is, right? So we could sit here for months and months and months and talk about it and try to be PC about it, or we could just have an honest conversation about it and agree that, you know, little children should not be getting sexualized in our schools.
Okay, so
I think-
I see two issues here, though, Tony.
Yes,
One is that we make a decision about that we're not going to mandate our staff to use pronouns, and then the other thing, which I think you're talking about, is what is in the realm of public education, where we need to look at human growth and development, right? That's what they call it. It's not called sex ed anymore. Human growth and development.
Which is a controversial issue already with our policy.
Absolutely.
So it needs to be cleared up.
So then when we start to look at this controversial issues policy, that we look at what is appropriate, and you talked about opt-in, right? When it comes to our sexual education or human growth and development, whatever you want to call it, what is part of that? What is not part of that? What is in the public domain that's important, like the reproductive system, like biology, right? You know, things like that, versus, you know, what are the issues that need to be left at home? Is that fair?
I don't see any way that I would get behind, you know, that's just my feelings on it right now. You know, I think that we need to take a firm stance on it, and.
I think right, and I think we can take a firm stance on it
Under the scope of.
under the scope of what you're talking about,
Right.
which is what is public education in the business to do, right? That's what that controversial issues policy is all about, and that we firm that up to say that you know what it is and what it is not, and that's what you want, right?
Right, I mean, I don't want our kids to be exposed to this stuff and my tax dollars funding it.
Right.
Is really what I want. So, and if people, you know, choose to do that at home, that's fine, they can do that at home, but I don't think our tax dollar, and again, slippery slope, right? You know, what if someone else wanted to do something else? Or do we have to like implement everything that people wanna do with tax dollars? And I mean, think about it, that's like an $81 million a year budget that people have infiltrated to push agendas, and I'm saying, hey, you know, let's just refocus the agenda on what's best for kids and their education.
Okay.
And you can't convince me that, using pronouns is gonna help kids long-term. That's just gonna confuse them.
But
Wait,
that's
and
what we're all agreeing on.
Right, that's the problem. We're not listening to each other.
We're trying to be tactful.
We're not communicating well. That's what's going on right now. We're not communicating well because we all do believe that. I believe we believe that there's no place for that.
Right.
It's just, again, I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to do that. What is the best way? What is the legal way? Whatever. So where do we go from here? And I will shut down any other communication right now unless it's a solution. Because we gotta.
One of the things to go to would be, I would consider going to WASB and to their legal department to talk to them because they're dealing with the school and legal school issues. It would be something to consider to go to.
Right. My only fear with WASB is
They'll be more liberal.
correct.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to put that out there. It'd be
I think a potential solution could be just to ban the sexualization of children in public schools.
Now, that's a clear, distinct statement that
But has no teeth.
has no teeth, but we can use it as a springboard to protect the sexualization of kids. So like, when then somebody's saying, hey, I want to be identified this way, we can refer to that policy to protect it, to keep that
Okay,
from
so
happening.
my suggestion right now is that we table this
Thank you.
and we come back to it. It's important, and I will put it on here again. And we need to come up with an absolute discussion, a solution. I do.
And do remember, we've been in meetings now for 6 hours too, so we're probably not all at our
Best, right.
peak. So
Yeah.
I'm
at peak performance.
I am.
Yeah, you are, yeah.
I'm feisty.
Okay, it's good. We have two other things. I appreciate the discussion on it, I really do. The student school board, you guys all saw this, there was some students that came together, they'd like to have some sort of forum with us. Tony responded to this student, and I thought it was good. Do we need another committee or an advisory, or can we encourage that we hear from that student committee about issues on a regular basis? Either that they send us some type of written document about what their concerns are, that we sit down, one of us goes and meets with them, whether or not they come and talk at public input. I would like to suggest to the student group that we come up with a way, rather than forming a committee, but as a way to communicate, with board president, I think is probably most appropriate, board president to let us know what is going on in the student body, and that I can present that information to the board, or they can come speak at public input to let us know, or other correspondence. Yeah.
So I thought that was a very good response, that we do have public input. We also do have currently there's student senate. There are government bodies in the school district that are elected by the student body. Having the ability for those people, I don't know about having a student school board committee, because that's kind of what that is. I think that's like kind of duplication. So maybe just allowing those people to, if we give them an agenda spot where we, I don't know, give them something to where they can, the student body can come to the board. Sure. The only thing I would worry about, I don't know about, because there is a district over in La Crosse area, I believe it's Holman, that has a student position on the school board. So we have contentious discussions sometime, we just had some. And at the end of the day, if I have a contentious topic that I'm feeling passionate about, and Tony has a contentious topic, at the end of the day, we're still adults, we're still friends. It's no big deal. We're talking and agreeing and disagreeing. Having a student that you're talking to, you kind of have to be a little bit more. You have to
really watch your language, and it can be very not okay. And that was a situation that lacrosse had, where one of the board members said something to one of the student board members, and it was very sharp, pointed, condescending, and taken totally in a negative manner. I think that would be not a good route to go. But utilizing what we currently have and the communications we have, I think is much, much better.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I see it being what they asked for is, I feel like the board makes a lot of decisions and nobody ever comes and asks us what we want. Now, we do a survey, we do things like that, but I just think that what I'd like to offer to them is that absolutely they have, we want to hear their voice, and these are the ways to do it.
So, what I was gonna suggest is you did touch on it at one point. As I've said it before, I've watched a lot of other districts to see how they run, or parts of it anyway. So, there's a lot of districts out there who have students come in and do various things. Like, some of them even come in and do the Pledge of Allegiance, like they'll bring in little elementary kids, and there's all kinds of stuff out there. But several of them have, as you said, a spot on the agenda where they may come in, and so maybe it's like called, something student voice or whatever, and they can bring in their topic, but it's that given spot on the agenda. Maybe it's like right after public input, like the beginning of a meeting, and they can send in a representative from the group about things that they're talking about or discussing. We don't have to respond or anything. It can be like public input, but that we can hear their concerns. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, because we're talking about trying to recreate and again, I hate to say culture, but it's, for lack of a better term, or a climate where we have more trust and transparency, and more than anything, connection. Even on the behavior committee, we talk all the time about like how to make kids feel involved and that their voices are heard and they feel part of the district. Well, if they know they have a representative come here once a month to talk they get their 3 minutes, that's maybe what they're held to, is just like a public input. That just creates more relationship.
So I would suggest that instead of having a standing thing on the agenda, that they know that they can approach the board president to have something put on the agenda, of something that they would like to discuss, and that, we'll consider putting that on there. But I don't know if there should be something every single time. Just as a way for us to, because again, remember, it's and this is I really want it to be, our board meeting is a place for business to be conducted. And so I want to make sure that if there's an issue that the students want to weigh in on, I think, but again, the correspondence comes, and that we can then say, right, we'll look into this on committee. Well, actually, the board would really like to hear about that. We're talking about that tonight. Bring a representative. Giving them those options.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think, we should be encouraging them, and really, frankly, anyone in our community that wants to be heard.
Absolutely.
I was kind of surprised we had such low participation in public input, and, a lot of people don't even know how to do it. Or what the process is. So I think it would be great to see more people that were passionate about issues come and address us.
Right. Okay.
So what was the stance to put in the?
Matt wants to say one thing, and then.
Oh, sorry.
So I think we should encourage our students to use their officers, so that they have a class president, and then they have a vice president. And if they don't feel that they're doing their due diligence to try to communicate that through public input, or they should communicate with their principal, and then their principal can communicate that to the board. But like, there's a chain of command that's not being followed because of transparency or because of lack of trust, that the students feel like they need to come, which we're encouraging them to come to meetings and give public input. That's fine on it based. But if they want to, this is with the technology, updating the technology, maybe we can have some way that they can make a video just like they did, Or we can give the principal the authority to do what that just happened and say, hey, make a video and then present it to your principal, and then the principal can forward it to us, and we can receive the information. Like, so I think through technology, we could have, a way that they can present more videos, like through Google videos. And then we can ensure that they can use the chain of command, that they can communicate with their school officer, or they can come to public input themselves. Yes.
I think that what's happening though, and maybe I'm seeing it the wrong way, but I saw it as this is a group of kids stemming out of like their government class
Yes.
who wants to come and get involved, and probably at the, probably with the blessing of their teacher saying, hey, why don't you guys approach the board and see if
Yeah,
you can
it
do
was
that?
definitely an assignment. It was definitely an assignment.
Yeah,
so
so
that's-
I don't see it as something like the kids need to go to their president kind of thing. I think this is a group of kids who's interested in being involved, and so that they want to come forward. And that is true. At the same time, I'm having thoughts like, okay, so it was like, what, 5 or 6 kids? So it's like, well, are they really the voice of everybody, or is it just that one group? So that they could just come and talk to public input and say, we formed our own little group and we have, we have this concern.
Right.
I don't know where that fits in exactly, but.
Well,
yeah.
I think what I'm going to say to them is that we have these outlets for you. Please use those. And then not only that, we want to send that to all students. All students need to know what that chain of command is, and that the board is definitely part of that chain. And that if you feel like we're making a decision about something and you want to weigh in on it, these are your options.
Well, and they can come directly to us.
Correct.
That's what public input is about. They
Exactly.
don't need to follow a chain
Yeah.
of command.
Right.
But I'm saying, people haven't educated the children about that system.
Correct.
So now you have a teacher that's saying, hey, if you want to get involved, get
Yeah.
involved. But we have, and if the system's broken, circumvent it a little bit. So they made a video, now we have, but I'm saying, let's use the system correctly, and then you don't have to circumvent it. So like, we received it, and now we want them to come to public input, or we want them to talk to their principal, and then have them talk to the board, so. That's,
And I think to your point, Kathy, that all kids know about it.
yep.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the
All
thing.
kids know about it, and that we send out something, and I'll make sure it happens, that we send out something that all kids know,
Like all juniors.
that these are your
Because
options.
What happens is they're a senior,
Yeah.
and then
Well, and that's true, and that's what I did. I wrote them back, and I said, I have some of your seniors, and
But guys, I mean, some people show up after the fact. So there might be people who are passionate about things, like seniors should know that too.
they should be coming to meetings all summer and tell us the truth about what they're not happy
Well,
about.
I mean,
True.
I have someone who came in the summer.
right? All right, so I will communicate to round that up. I'm going to communicate to the students about the ways that they can communicate, and then I will also get something out to Mark to just a blast out to all students and staff to remind them of to encourage students to be participating in issues.
You could talk about the drive that we want to, the centralized conflict thing too. Like, I mean, we're trying to organize our thoughts a little bit of having a place
Sure.
for complaints.
Yeah.
Like, that's a part of it.
Okay.
It really is, isn't it? I mean,
So for minutes, Stacy will communicate the process to.
Process of ways students can communicate with the school board. Any thoughts or concerns they have about issues.
Is that going to be a mass to all students?
Yeah, however, I'm going to work with administration to see how best to get that out to students. Again, kindergartners, probably not.
Right.
But middle school, high school, I think absolutely.
All right.
Okay. All right, I need a motion and a second to go into closed session.
Motion.
Second?
Hold on just a second.
And I roll call vote.
We got visitors, just
Oh,
I understand that, but we have to
Oh.
roll call vote to get out into open session. So Colin Vernell,
Aye.
Kathy,
aye.
Stacy Seldner, aye. Okay. We are now in closed session at 8:15.
Yeah.